processional mythologies. So there are these worldwide, global mythologies that encode the movement of procession, and we know this from just looking at, Western history, where there was an obsession with Aries or lamb symbolism for 2,000 years, and then before that there was an obsession on Taurus or bull symbolism, and then now we're in this phase where Christianity is all based on the fish symbolism, the Pisces symbolism.
That's right.
So all of this is, deeply encoded into history. But the first person who really wrote about this in a specific, explicit way was Terence McKenna, who is a visionary philosopher, passed away about 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
But he and his brother Dennis wrote an amazing book called The Invisible Landscape that came out in 1975. And in that book, he explicitly said that, there's this rare alignment that's going to be happening around the turn of the millennium. So he didn't mention 2012 specifically in that book, but he was aware of this process, the what he referred to as the heliacal rise of the December solstice, of the galactic center on the December solstice. So the definition he used was a bit obscure, but I became friends with Terence later on, and in fact he wrote the introduction to my book, Mayan Cosmogenesis, and he told me that, the book Hamlet's Mill was the place where he sort of intuited that, because Hamlet's Mill is a strange book. It's quite a labyrinth to read, and the galactic alignment you have to infer sort of secondarily from the information that they're providing in there. So as of 1975, then, I recognize Terence's book as the first place that this galactic alignment was first officially, published on.
By the way, in Hamlet's Mill, do they discuss this from a kind of scientific point of view, or only, mythology?
Only mythology. Yeah, they don't assume or even pursue the idea that it could perhaps be, the dawn of a new era, sort of like a Copernican revolution in how perhaps these galactic alignments are involved in chaos dynamics or quantum theory or some kind of scalar wave angular orientation as we move in our orientation through the fields of force of the galaxy, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But certainly it's a very, very potent mythological idea. And up into the 80s, you had sort of various kind of New Age fragmented appropriations of the idea, and different people were sort of talking about it in sort of distorted ways, I guess. And the connection with 2012, or the Mayan tradition, was basically something that emerged with my work in the early 90s.
Okay, and let's talk a little about that. I mean, how did you even make the connection to begin with,
Well, by the early 90s, I had read Invisible Landscape, of course, so the whole idea of precession and the galactic alignment was kind of in the back of my mind. At the same time, it's like understanding what it really was a bit difficult, how we understand astronomy, how we study these things, and, you really have to sort of have an understanding of how the sky moves and so on, and for me, working with astronomy software in the late 80s and early 90s helped me understand exactly how this worked. And there are certain astronomical features involved in this. For example, in that region where the sun will be aligning with the Milky Way is a feature called the dark rift or the great cleft. It's a dark ridge kind of feature that runs along the Milky Way, and it's caused by the thick accumulation of dust, interstellar dust, between us and the galactic center. And so it basically looks like little spots or ridges. In Europe, these little spots on the Milky Way, one was called the coal sack, And in South America, the Incas have a whole mythology around these dark blotches that run along the Milky Way. They have a whole mythology around it. But the big one is called the Great Cleft or the Dark Rift. And in my readings of Maya creation mythology, I read that the Dark Rift is a feature. It's called the Xibalba Bay, the road to the underworld.
Ah, okay.
It's a very, very prominent feature in the Maya creation myth. It's the place that the father of the hero twins journey into the underworld to do battle with the lords of the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the place where their father is reborn from. And then I started looking at other aspects of Maya symbolism and realized that the Milky Way was often seen as a snake, and so this dark rift feature would be like the mouth. But it wasn't that simple, because I was also finding in my study of, say, for example, the ball game, the sacred ball game of the Maya, the ball court was mythologized as the Milky Way, or the Milky Way was the ball court, and in that metaphor, the dark rift was then the goal ring. So I started to think, wow, this is pretty interesting. And the very fact that the galactic alignment is culminating in the years around 2012 was, of course, a real, beacon for me. It's like, wow, well, that's pretty amazing. Could it be that the 2012 date in the Maya calendar was chosen to target this rare galactic alignment?
Yeah.
Of course, you could make that general assertion, but what I wanted to do was look deeply into the Maya traditions and find if there was any evidence that they were, in fact, encoding this galactic alignment. And I did find, and this is really what my main contribution is to the whole discussion, I found that the galactic alignment is deeply encoded into the symbolism of the Maya creation mythology and the sacred ball game, as well as rituals like king-making rituals. And we can go into that a little bit if you want to. It has to do with how kings were high shamans, really, and they had to make a vision journey into the cosmic center. That's what really bestowed them with the power of rulership. And for the Maya, that cosmic center was the galactic center. So it's all really nicely. The whole thing is just a coherent paradigm. I'd call it a galactic cosmology that the ancient Maya had formulated, and the eschatological target point for this whole belief system in cosmology is the galactic alignment in 2012.
So what you're saying here is that there are hints that the Maya actually knew about this alignment and incorporated this into not only, as you described, their ball game, but also, I guess, their architecture and, of course, obviously, their long count, the calendar, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And it's more than just hints. I mean, I guess it's a little bit, my work is the pioneering work of an independent scholar, and I have tried to get into the trenches with academia on this whole thing because, one of the problems with trying to put this, I think of my work as kind of an interdisciplinary synthesis because I'm really just drawing from the data that the scholars themselves provide, but I'm providing a more integrated synthesis of the evidence, and it does point towards an awareness of this galactic alignment. But scholars are very, very prone to just completely dismiss this, and they almost don't really want to talk about 2012 too much at all because they're aware that in the popular, sort of New Age media, it's a doomsday topic, and they just kind of roll their eyes and walk away if you try to talk about it with them. But that's really unfortunate, and I think it's really irresponsible of mainstream scholars to dismiss 2012 in such a flippant way, because encoded inside of it, you basically have this incredible, profound galactic cosmovision. And if we want to just keep it at the level of good old-fashioned effort to reconstruct an ancient paradigm, then that's fine with me. But in addition to that, though, of course, the implications are pretty interesting to explore.
Absolutely, and I heard a little bit about when you talked about the among other things. But the pyramid at Chichen Itza, the Kukulkan, the pyramid, very interesting how they incorporated, not only of course how the serpent moves downward, the pyramid itself, of course, but also that there are some hints in the architecture that points towards this alignment that you're talking about. Do you mind elaborating on this a little bit?
Oh no, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's a very interesting aspect of the work that I did in the mid '90s, reading through the academic literature and studying the symbolism and the iconography. It's hard to ignore the connections between astronomy and the symbolism. And many people know about the pyramid of Kukulkan, or Quetzalcoatl, at Chichen Itza. It's that famous pyramid that on the equinox, the sun, as it's setting in the west, casts a shadow against the northern stairway, and it looks like an undulating serpent, sort of a shadow serpent slithering down with its head at the bottom. Carved in stone, actually. There's a stone head at the bottom of the stairway.
Yeah.
So we know that it was oriented in that way with the head at the bottom. Now, people know about this, and many thousands of people flock to Chichen Itza every equinox to view it. It's quite a striking spectacle. And since it happens on the equinox, people talk about it as the return of the life energy in spring to reanimate the earth with life force and so on. And that's certainly part of the story. But what I noticed is that there's also a deeper esoteric symbolism encoded into this, and it has to do with the snake's tail would, of course, point upwards through the center of the pyramid and point up into the zenith of the sky. The zenith is the exact center of the sky overhead. And if you were to look straight down on a pyramid from above, it forms the 5-directional quincunx symbol, which is really 4 sides with the 5th direction in the center.
Ah.
So the 5th center direction is the zenith direction in these models, in these cosmograms. So for this reason, it's pretty clear then that the snake's tail is indicating something that is happening in the zenith of the sky. Now here's the pieces that I put together and offered that's pretty much flown completely under the radar in terms of people, picking up on it. So I thank you for picking up on that, because I think it's a real interesting, deeper understanding of what this pyramid of Kukulkan is about. It's basically this. The snake's rattle, the Crotalus dorissus rattlesnake in the Yucatan, the snake's rattle, it's called Tzab in the Yucatec Maya language, Tzab. That is also the word for the Pleiades. It's the rattle constellation. Now, on these king snakes, there's also a strange little physical mark right below the rattle, and it's basically a circle with 3 dots in it. And this is the sun face, and it's recognized that this is why these snakes are called king snakes, because if you look at it, you have the circle with the 3 dots, which is like 2 eyes in the mouth, and then it's wearing the rattle as the crown. So this is all part of the symbolism that is recognized, that the king snakes are like the Maya solar king and so on.
Yeah.
But basically what this indicates then is that the shadow serpent that appears on the equinox is indicating an alignment in the zenith between the Pleiades and the sun, because the little 3-dot thing is a solar face. And so this is really intriguing, and so I looked at this. Now, within the tropical zone, within the tropics, the sun can pass through the zenith, and it does so on 2 days every year. Outside of the tropics, in the northern latitudes or whatever, the sun can't do that. It always passes, in an arc in the southern skies. It never quite makes it up to the zenith, even in June, in summer. So in the tropics, the sun can pass through the zenith. It does so on 2